I leave every one of these episodes with something else to work on. Maybe we should choose different topics. Welcome back to Past Your Prime, the podcast for the active adult who is currently staring at a foam roller and wondering if they're a hero for pushing through the pain or a complete idiot who's about to need surgery.
That's his best.
I'm Alex Hiker, pro volleyball player, working dad, and a guy who has spent the last decade trying to decide if that pop in my calf was a minor inconvenience or the end of my career. It was both.
It's been more than one, yeah.
I am joined by Craig, the PT Smith, physical therapist, strength coach, and a man who has to explain to people every single day that feeling something doesn't always mean you broke something. You've told me that many times, and I'm appreciative for those times. Before we get started, drop us a comment. We want to hear what you guys want to hear about, so let us know. We're always looking for new ideas to podcast about, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. Also, go to smithperformancecenter.com if you want to get some online training. I think you guys do online PT. Can't remember if you do or don't, but I think you do. Also a dietitian on the team now. Just had my first visit there and had some success implementing those things over the last week. So
Was it good?
it was all right. Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah. But today we are tackling the $1 million question. Do you have $1 million?
And the second question.
Is it pain or is it an injury? Kind of talking about the difference between actually being hurt or maybe being harmed and why your brain is sometimes lying to you about how much danger you're in. And we'll go over a couple of things to know if you should head to the gym or maybe to the ER. I know I've definitely had that, oh shit moment where
Yeah.
I called Craig after firework went off in my gastroc, and I didn't go to the ER. Never gone to the ER for any of my sports injuries, although maybe I should have for some of them.
But it was torn.
Yeah, it was
definitely
certainly torn. Yeah.
That was an interesting one too, because I was swelled. We couldn't really see the
It
tear.
didn't swell at all.
No, remember was that the one where we couldn't really see the tear initially, and then over
Yeah.
time the tear became very clear?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a divot.
I guess it did
see.
swell a little bit, but like it didn't turn black. Everybody else that I've
Yeah.
known that's torn a calf, like their whole lower leg turned black, and
There was no swelling.
there was
No visible bruising. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There definitely was swelling because like filled in that gap.
yeah,
I mean, it was like 2 or 3 months later where
the divot came out.
divot,
Yeah,
which oof, you've never really recovered from that.
not fully. Yeah,
From the change. For people have actually made comments on how much smaller that size is now. Like
it's
size
just
of the
shaped
gap.
differently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's brutal.
it's like I had a peach and took a slice out of it.
Dude, you're on fire today. That's
Spicy
ridiculous.
morning.
Yep.
So I've heard you say before that being hurt is not the same as being harmed. I feel like those are the same thing. Tell me why you say this.
Well, my thoughts always go back to the idea around tissue capacity, and tissue capacity, just to repeat for like the 100th time, for me is two things. On one side, it's the actual mechanical resilience of the tissue. Can it handle the load? Can it handle the repeated stresses that you're putting through it? First, actually the threat detection system. And that'd be your body's perception of danger from whatever just happened or whatever you're perceiving. They're not the same thing. They typically they're supposed to work in concert together, but sometimes they're completely separated. And so you can have where somebody could have the most severe pain and we find nothing. There is nothing there's no visible tissue damage that you can actually find. Or you can have the exact opposite. You can have where somebody has severe tissue damage, but they have no perception of pain. So you have somebody who has an injury somewhere else, they get an image and it catches something that they had no awareness of that they were even dealing with.
I feel like the one that I hear the most is like torn meniscus. Like I think you've told me before that
So common.
a ton of people have a torn meniscus if you've been an athlete, especially, a power athlete, the likelihood that you have even a very minor tear is very high. And oftentimes people don't even feel it.
They won't notice it. Yeah, I think the most fascinating thing is that with meniscal injuries, because the meniscus has to stay between the two longest bones in your body and it has to glide out of the way, your body doesn't always keep itself from hurting itself, right? So you'll smash the meniscus, and over the course of time, you'll have some degeneration, some maybe minor tears, but some damage to your meniscus, and it's not a big deal. It's actually one of the reasons why that, combined with the lack of effectiveness with some surgeries compared to doing nothing, they don't recommend surgery for even mechanical symptoms with meniscal lesions, because they're just totally normal. And I think that's common through multiple areas. I mean, I think your spine, your knee joint, the meniscus, I mean, it's all sorts of rotator cuff lesions. Like, so you have all these things that is pretty normal to have degeneration in, show some level of pathology if you got an image of it. And they'll do it in groups of people who have no pain at all, and they'll show that they have these pathologies. And so it's one of the reasons why you just have to respect that damage, and then your threat detector system, which is pain, is just a threat detector system. They're not a one-to-one. And so, I mean, way back in the day, we all thought that if you hurt, it was just a measure of how bad you were hurt, right? And through the course of time, it's become really clear that it's a system to detect something going wrong, and it's not always accurate.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like your hardware is your mechanical issues if there's actually a tear or something along those lines, and then the software is your threat detection system saying, like, should I be worried about this? Should I not be worried about this? I've got several software glitches and probably hardware glitches for that fact right now, because everything always hurts. I guess that's not always true, but
yeah, does it always hurt? Do you always?
Not always, but I do a lot of activity and probably don't rest as much as I should.
Yeah.
So my threat detector system is always on high alert. I know we've talked about that a few times.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. What I notice, so my brain always goes to, when somebody comes in, I want to assess have they had some mechanical damage? That'd be the first thing. But then what's interesting is I'll also see that they have a change in the threshold for their threat detector system to go off. Like, I've had times where it's super low, like much lower than what it should be, and so everything triggers it. So they'll come in and everything is causing pain. We call that a sensitization process. You're sensitizing.
I'd love to just turn mine off, but
you don't want to turn it off.
No, but it's on like hyperdrive right now.
Did I ever tell you about one of the first jobs I had in healthcare? I worked inside a community home with kids who had different disabilities.
Story time with Craig.
One of the boys had I can't say because I didn't know enough at the time, and I can't remember exactly what the diagnosis was, but he did not have a normal threat detection system. And so he would have these crazy behaviors where he would hurt himself, but he had no perception that he was hurting himself. And so he was just covered in scars, but it didn't hurt him. He didn't notice it. But then because of that, you had to take everything really serious because you have no sense of it. And so you have these stories. It's not common where people are born without the ability to sense pain, and they typically die in childhood. They don't typically make it out because they'll have an infection that they don't even realize that they have, and then they pass away from it.
Wow.
And so it's critical to have the threat detector system, but it is interesting how haywire it can go.
Yeah.
And when I think of somebody like an athlete you've played a lot, there's no way that happens in a vacuum. You've absolutely modified your system around what you perceive because you've done a few things. For example, when you work out super hard, you've told me before that you enjoy the feeling of muscle soreness. The next day you actually feel better because you're sore.
Yeah. To me, it tells me I did something, that I've gotten some stimulus.
That's interesting, right? So and that's a context. You've changed the context of what your threat detection system.
See, and that one's not a threat to me, which is, I guess, interesting as well.
So what is a threat to you? What things I think it's when things trigger for you, what I've noticed is it's when it seems like it's going to impact your play.
And that's mainly what it is, when I'm in, you know, a 6 set and my Achilles starts to feel a little tender because like the threat detection system has been off for, you know, the 5 sets prior to that. And then something happens and then it's like everything goes into red alert.
And then it grows.
Yeah.
Like this is like the fear of it almost grows. And what I would say on that with you specifically, it takes reps over reps to reset where your current threat detection is at. And if you don't reset it, that's where people who get afraid doing the activity and then never go back to the activity, that activity is now a threat forever. Like even if they don't hurt the tissue, it'll take less stimulus for them to actually experience pain.
Yeah.
And it's just a fascinating.
I just want to be able to control alt delete and, you know, end that task. We're making all these weird hardware and software, whatever, putting it together like that. But it is generally a warning sign.
It is a warning sign.
Kind of a measure of how serious you need to take that.
It is. It's just, I think it's really important to understand that there's very clear processes that are happening in the background. Like, so you have first order neurons, second order neurons, and third order neurons that are communicating with each other. So if somebody comes in and they have an acute injury, meaning they just sprained their ankle, typically that's going to be accurate. Say it's like the first time they've ever injured themselves. I'm not concerned that they're having a misfiring of their threat detector system. That's not what I'm saying. But most individuals over the course of time, they're going to have a series of things happen to their body. And that's where you see these like interactions where now if you sprained your ankle, but you're somebody who's had a long-standing history of low back pain and you've had neural symptoms down your leg, and when you sprain, you do the exact same injury as somebody who had never hurt themselves before, that person's perception, even if the injury is exactly the same, is going to be very different. The level of pain they're experiencing will probably be a little bit more heightened. They'll probably have a larger area that's involved. And that can be peripheral sensitization. That's where we call them nociceptors.
You've talked about your nociceptors several times on this podcast.
I love saying the word nociceptors. Oftentimes people will say it's pain receptors, but that's not really the right way to think of it, because it's not pain at that point. It's just stimulus that whether it's chemical, thermal, pressure, like mechanical, there's these nociceptors will pick up on that stimulus, whatever one it is, within a certain range, and then it sends those signals up to the spinal cord. Now, the reason I say they're not pain receptors is you can stimulate those and it can send a signal to the spinal cord and it won't ever actually be pain. Like the nociceptors are being stimulated all the time without actually producing a pain signal.
But like, is your brain just like malfunctioning, or?
That's just more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once you get to your spinal cord, that's your second order neuron.
Or like, is it overreacting, I guess?
It can. If your brain's overreacting, that'd be more central sensitization. That'd be more, there's things that are happening. Like, for example, there's parts of your brain that modulate pain, meaning that they help to produce what you then experience as pain. Modulation can go one way or the other. It can amplify it or it can reduce it, right? And the hope is that it's accurate. And by accuracy, what I mean is it's giving you the information that's actually helpful for you in the moment. And where most people, I think, where they feel betrayed by their system is when it makes it more serious and more debilitating than what it needs to be. So when somebody says, is this pain or is this an injury? What I never question is if it's pain, right? What I mean is somebody tells me they have pain.
Yeah.
Whereas like I'll have conversations with physicians or PTs or even like well-meaning spouses who are like, is this real? It's like, well, if they're saying it's painful, it's painful. Like it's a fully subjective experience.
Yeah.
But where I think people are concerned is when it's not accurate, when the threat detection system is like thrown off and now everything gets perceived as a damaging event. I think that's when it gets super frustrating.
Yeah.
You know,
that's like a paper cut versus a long-standing meniscus thing. Like the paper cut is going to hurt. There's a visible injury, as where if you've got a minor meniscus tear that may or may not hurt you and you're not going to be able to see it other than potentially on advanced imaging.
Yeah. And so the person could be completely negative, but then you could have, what could happen is like, say you had a paper cut, but say in that area where you cut it on your finger, you'd had a neck injury with referral to that specific area. It could spike symptoms that are uninvolved
Is
in the paper.
Is that a real example?
100% I've seen it before.
What?
People have had like a small injury. You can have like a secondary injury on top of an original injury that then amplifies the second injury in ways that shouldn't happen.
But not specifically a paper cut in your neck.
No, not paper. No, I've seen somebody get a paper cut on their hand and they had a neck injury. And then when they had the paper cut, it made the symptoms much more severe than what the paper cut should have been.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
like, is that a sensitivity,
That's absolutely a sensitization.
like
So
a nervous system type deal? Or
yeah, so that's first order neuron, basically because of how everything had interacted, you have that paper cut, and then when it triggered a nociceptor, it came to your spinal cord, and instead of like the normal one signal maybe going up to indicate that you had this cut, it basically got amplified. So one message now became 10 or 1,000, and it was dramatically more painful. And then it lingered for longer. So you can get these things like, we call them hyperalgesia, but it hurts more than it should. But you can also get things like allodynia, where stuff that is like normal tissue that shouldn't hurt now hurts. And like, for example, this case with this person with a paper cut, I could touch in an area that wasn't even close to where the cut was, and it hurt really, really bad. And it was fascinating. It was like, okay.
You just blew my mind.
Really?
Yeah, that just seems crazy to me because they seem so unrelated. But you also blew my mind when you told me my calf was having an interaction with my back. So, but I think there's other things out there that can affect your pain perception.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're stressed out, if you're not getting good rest, if you're not properly feeding your body with good nutrition, those things can also
Dramatically
have a positive or negative effect on the amount of pain you're feeling.
Well, you can have things like at the most basic level, like say those things that you just talked about, if it increases systemic inflammation. So say your whole body is more inflamed. Absolutely. Like that's one of the reasons why when somebody hurts and then you take like a pill and it knocks down the inflammatory response, the reason it feels better is you're knocking out local inflammation. So there's these things like cytokines and prostaglandins and mast cell and these like processes that are happening when you injure something that literally amplify the experience. You take an anti-inflammatory and it knocks that inflammation response and you feel less pain. It's not like it took away the injury. Whereas you have some things where it won't touch it at all. Like the pain is much, much worse. And the only way you can distract from it or reduce it is by distracting the person. Or you'll have people where they'll use meditation to manage their pain. Well, that's more central. Like you're basically downregulating certain areas of your brain that participate in the pain experience, like your anterior cingulate cortex, your nucleus accumbens, your amygdala. Like there's these things that are in your brain that you're quieting down, which then helps with your pain experience.
Sometimes I think you're making these words up, but then I remember that your title starts with doctor, and I'm like, okay, it must be real.
Yeah. This isn't true, right? Yeah. No, I think it's fascinating that the interaction, like it's just more complex. Like it's fun what I take away from all of it is it's more like, I always believe if somebody says they're in pain, but then it doesn't always mean that that there's a clear underlying mechanical injury. Like I always had to verify that.
Well, and along the lines of what you were just talking about, for me being in competition, at least for a while, can turn all of those things off. I mean, okay, tore my calf, like I was done. I couldn't get back up on that thing. But when I broke my wrist, I played a whole nother match.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And like it was hurting, but I don't know, my threat detector was like, it's not that bad. Like you sprained your wrist, you'll be fine tomorrow. And then I woke up and my hand looked like it was an inflated glove, which at that point I knew that something more was wrong. And I did inquire within myself, like, could I play today? And my family was like, you need to go to urgent care like 20 minutes ago. So
there's these two researchers that really changed the way people thought about pain. And it was Wall and Melzak. And they're the guys that came up with spinal gate theory. And they're the first ones to really throw out the idea that you can have, there's not a one-to-one between an injury and the pain experience. And what they showed is that you can have an injury, but then even at the spinal cord, there's something that's getting modulated. And so, for example, if you have a nociceptor, it's not that nerve does not have a ton of myelin around it, the type of neuron that it is, so it doesn't send signals really fast. And so if you stimulate other nerves that are bigger and more myelinated, like if you bump your head and you rub that area and it reduces the pain. Have you ever done that? Have you ever hit your...
I don't know. Ice packs fix everything for my kids when they
bump their heads.
Yeah, it's like, I'm bleeding out of my elbow. We'll just put an ice pack on that. You'll be fine. And they're like, yes, please. Thank you.
It actually works.
Yeah.
It's because at that age, they still have mutant juice and they can survive.
Or something where like I've bumped my forearm. Let's put a Band-Aid on there. Like, that's for bleeding. No, I need a Band-Aid.
So the spine, I love that. So the spinal gating idea is that you can basically get neurons that are bigger that send a faster signal, and they'll gate the ability for the nociceptors to pass on the information up the spinal cord. And so it was the first idea that you could modulate a pain experience, right? But since then, there's been so much more information. So for example, we had talked about exercise hell and how some people, when they exercise, they feel dramatically worse afterwards. That's part of the threat detector system. So like you and I, if we exercise, typically what will happen is we will have the enkephalin and endorphin response where it blocks the signal between the first neuron, so your nociceptor, and I'm kind of thinking as like a danger receptor, and then at your spinal cord, think of it as like a danger messenger, and it blocks it from getting to the danger messenger. And so you're literally cutting off part of the signal before it even gets up to your brain. And that's literally why cardio is so useful for people. It's an easy way for you to start to get a normal endorphin response.
And that can happen pretty quickly.
Super fast.
I liken that to, like, I'm warming up for a match. I'll feel a little bit of pain in a couple of different areas. And then like as soon as that match starts, all gone.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Like I just forget about it all.
So to me, what that is, you can think of, so say the first order neuron, that's the danger receptors. Then you have the spinal cord, which is your, like the messengers. And then once it gets to your brain, there's these different areas in the brain that modulate the experience. So if it gets to your thalamus, that's when you first perceive it. And then when it gets to your anterior cingulate cortex, that's when you really become aware of it. And so if your focus switches from on my calf to the game is now on, you're going to be really focused on the game. And so you literally are just no longer bringing your awareness to the injury.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like distraction works so well when people are in pain.
Yeah. You had just mentioned that earlier, and I don't know. It was just a weird correlation that I put in my brain, because so often like, oh, my knee's a little bit sore, and then, within minutes, I don't think about it again until, I get to that next threat detection system where I've gone past what my body can handle, and then it all starts to hurt again.
See, my interest, that always makes me think of like what happens at the end of what's changing that makes you become aware of it again. That's what always fascinates me. And that's,
to me, it seems just like an endurance thing, but
it could be. That's actually one of the reasons we use key signs, right?
Yeah.
Is that it helps to build a cleaner feedback loop earlier, especially if you have somebody like you, like we've talked about, where you get into a focus game playing mindset. You're not going to notice it. Like, it's just not going to be something that's going to come to your awareness. And that's why people will get done. And then, as that fades, they'll feel like something really bad happened.
Yeah.
It's not something that's already going on before. It's not the end of the match that caused it.
Are there other examples where pain is high, but the tissue is completely fine or very close to fine?
Yeah, I mean, the ones that it's always interesting when you have somebody come in and you can't provoke, it's unclear. You can have people with kidney stones. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Where it's incredibly painful, where it's not that big of a tissue that's involved. It seems relatively small. So it's kind of confusing how severe the symptoms can be. But you can have it with so many different injuries, individuals who have severe back pain, and then they go get an image and everything's normal. You can have like those types of situations. It's unbelievably common, where there's no real thing that can be evidenced based off of an exam or based off of imaging what's causing the symptoms.
Would that be like a muscle spasm, muscle strain,
muscle cramp?
Muscle cramp, yeah.
You can see those too, where afterwards there's no actual damage that you can see, but but in the moment it can feel pretty severe. I mean, dude, I've had before where I'm like sitting at the movie theater and all of a sudden I get this sharp pain in my leg and then it kind of goes away. And you're just kind of looking around, what the hell did I just experience?
Yeah.
It's confusing. Super confusing.
I've been getting a lot of weird like side cramp, ab pains or something like that where it just comes and goes. Like, I don't know what the heck's going on.
That might be liver disease. You might want to get that one checked out.
Okay. Good.
Not to make you nervous.
Yeah. I'm just dying now. What about on the other side of that where you have a tissue that is damaged, but you're not feeling a lot of pain?
I see a lot of osteoarthritis is like that. Knee osteoarthritis. Someone will come in and they may not have any pain or they have pain somewhere else, and then we'll notice that there's pretty significant changes to maybe the way that their range of motion, for example, and the joint will end up being arthritic. Or you'll have where they'll get an image of something and they're like, oh, I got told I have degenerative disc disease, but they have no back pain. Maybe they were doing it for something more like around in their stomach or around their hip, and it shows this finding that doesn't really correlate with what they've been experiencing. But it's super common.
There was a basketball player, and I can't remember his name right now, but had no meniscus and obviously was playing in the NBA, and that's bone on bone. There probably was some pain there, but
Maybe
still able to perform at a super high level even without any meniscus structure at all.
Yeah, I've seen before where there's been case studies where you have these elite athletes playing without like an ACL. It's pretty common. It's really common, actually.
Well, Lindsey Vonn.
Yeah, didn't she crash pretty hard?
For her, but
that's brutal.
But valiant effort.
Yeah, she was doing well though until then. Yeah, she tore her ACL on one run and then had to get life flighted on like a second run.
Yeah, and then just destroyed the rest of her leg.
Yikesies. Yeah, that's not fun.
But seeing some of the workouts she was able to do without an ACL were kind of mind-blowing.
Well, and it kind of goes into, there's things in our body has a lot of redundancies in it, which is pretty impressive. And an ACLs are interesting because you have people that you can split into copers versus non-copers, and there's all this stuff around it, which it could be a fun one to talk about next.
We shouldn't ignore pain altogether. Do you have like a checklist or some sort of
way I think about it? Yeah. I mean, if it's an acute injury, if it's a rapid onset and you have a clear trauma, that's going to be the case where it's pretty accurate. You don't want to ignore it. If you have a random severe pain and it's sustained and doesn't go away, you should absolutely have that evaluated. When we're talking about it becoming discoordinated, it's typically or basically not relationship with each other anymore. Those are going to be more common in injuries that you have sustained and you've had for a really long period of time, especially ones that you're afraid of that could make you feel more anxious or there's some bad context around it. For example, if there was something, well, I've seen this before, mom or dad who they hurt their back when they were picking their child up. And now that threatens their identity as a parent. And it's not something that they ever want to give up, but they're still afraid of picking their kid up again and say it only hurts them randomly. Well, if you're scared of it randomly hurting you, it's really going to change your whole fear. If it's almost random when you're going to have this sharp, debilitating pain come back, those are things where it's really useful to have a professional help to pull it apart for you and kind of figure it out. But if it's acute, recent, you have a clear trauma, yeah, that's clear. If it's not acute, meaning it didn't just happen, but the severity's high, you should always get that checked out, especially if it hangs on. But then if you're somebody who's dealing with these recurrent injuries and it seems like you're catching the injury bug and everything hurts you, that means you're not just having to change the mechanical resilience of your body, you've had a very big change to your threat detector system. And there's tools to basically break that apart too. The biggest one being just understanding that they're not the same thing.
That makes sense. If pain isn't a reliable damage detector or detection system, what else would you pay attention to?
No, I think pain's quite useful. I think it's more that
it's just not always accurate.
It's not always accurate. So
Yeah.
It's still an extremely useful tool, but it's really helpful when you figure out sometimes when you're dealing with a sensitization process, I think it allays some of the fears around it. So that's where I find it to be the most helpful. You know, as somebody who's had to deal with chronic pain, the severity of it and knowing that it doesn't match, so they're not hurting or damaging something irreparably, that was a very big game changer for my own experience. And I think it's really helpful when people who think they're just falling apart, but really they've had a sensitization happen. It can be really empowering. And then you can look for tools to treat the sensitization issue versus, okay, I need to go find another treatment to help my mechanical resilience. They're just two separate problems.
I leave every one of these episodes with something else to work on. Maybe we should choose different topics.
I love it.
Anything else that you wanted to touch on when we're talking about pain versus an acute injury?
No, I would just say with pain, just it's all real. And so I don't think you have to, I'm not minimizing the pain experience at all when we say this. And so you can have severe pain with no clear reason, no clear tissue reason. Yeah. And it's just as severe as if there was.
It's like an overly dramatic friend. Pain's my overly dramatic friend. Like, if you could just shut up for a while.
Well, the bad part is you want to verify it. So I also don't like the idea of minimizing it, the experience of it, because it sucks. If you are going for it and if you think you're broken, but really your tissue looks fine, you're going to go for the wrong solution. So it's more just being clear on what the right solution is for you. And that can be sometimes very difficult to tease apart.
I was going to close out with something different, but I honestly think that's a better closer.
Cool.
I guess we'll see it on the next one. Go to smithperformancecenter.com. See Craig. He'll help you with something. He'll help you turn your threat detector system off, or at least help align it so that it's thinking better.
Yeah, reset it.
Yeah.
Or I'll have it.
Control-Alt-Delete.
BRB, baby.
Peace.